Well, welcome to Top Dice. My name's Ade, and I've got Jay with me from Feral Gamers Inc. To talk to today. You all right, Jay?
Yep, not too bad. Not too bad.
Excellent. Well, we're going to talk about Feral Gamers, if that's okay today with you. Obviously, you're the main man for this. It's
We only man.
I was going to sort of say it's a bit of a one-man band, but
Yeah, it is,
you've
yeah,
been, let's face it, you've been very successful. How many games roughly have you had out so far?
yeah. I don't know. I'd be close to 20, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking about
Mm.
20, and quite a lot of those they're available on drive-through role-playing site. I will be putting the links down in the comments of this video, but also quite a lot of them have reached silver and gold status, haven't they?
They have, yeah, a lot of them. There's quite a few gold bestsellers.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
this is what it's all
so,
about, and when you think about the number of games that actually sort of get to that level, it's not huge.
no, no, I'm quite
So
pleased actually.
it's something to be very proud of. So we'll start off at the beginning. When did you actually begin gaming? That's
Um,
not writing, but actual gaming. When did you
right,
start?
right. I was probably around 13, I think. Um, and I started with Tons and Trolls
Brilliant.
and the odd fighting fantasy book. I played a few of those, but I kind of got a bit sick. And I got them sorcery ones that came out afterwards, were a larger format.
Yep. The
Um,
slightly larger paperbacks. Yep.
yeah, I got some of that, but then I kind of migrated onto Tons and Trolls, and then after that, I went on to RuneQuest Second Edition,
Yep.
which I never really learnt the rules for, and ended up playing. I took it to school with me, and ended up using the original Hero Quest boards as a way of doing dungeon crawls. I remember that one of my characters, one of the miniatures I had was Frod the Barbarian, the lead Frod the Barbarian from White Dwarf.
I do indeed. Carl Critchlow, I think, wasn't it
Yeah, yeah,
that did
Carl
that?
Critchlow, yeah.
Absolute legend. It's one of the reasons we used to pick up White Dwarf. That with that and the
Mm-hmm.
Travellers, two absolute
Yeah,
classics. Then of course there's Gobbledygook. However,
yeah.
it's uh, it's not about Carl Critchlow. It's about yourself. So that was your start. So that would have been early
Uh,
80s.
early 80s, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
RuneQuest, of course, is now sort of ongoing, but that obviously I know from the games of or some of the games I've actually seen from yourself have actually has been quite an influence in a positive way. So, what was the first game that you actually or game system you actually wrote?
Okay, right. So the first game I ever wrote was around the same, well, it must have been around 84. So that would have been the Zombie Squad, right? Which was based on the second Aliens film, Aliens, right? It was based on the books of Sven Hassel, and um, and the name was taken from the Cobra movie, Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah,
Because at the beginning of the Cobra movie, he said he used to be a member of the Zombie Squad, right? And so I
yeah,
adopted that name because I thought it was quite cool. And I like Sven Hassel books because there was all about the penal legions, and I thought, well, what about Space Marines? You know, like the alien stuff, but as ex-prisoners of war who had been thrown to do the dirty jobs. So I kind of, that was written back in it would have been the early mid 80s. My first game, it used the D100 system, percentile system, because of RuneQuest probably. And I remember running it at a club and people really enjoying it. I had a friend of mine who did some artwork for it. I have no idea where the original manuscripts are for that, but that was the first time I ever wrote a game. And that was the 80s.
possibly one to revisit again then.
I have done, yeah, I did redo it back in 2015. I actually one of the first games I gave away for free, um, along with the original Delve and the original Super Secret Spy Agency, was a Zombie Squad. The same artist who did the original artwork did the artwork for that, and it went really well. Did a Kickstarter for it. I think actually that went really well. Did it for Savage Worlds and as its own system.
Yeah,
Um, but it's no longer available now, and it's now belongs to someone else. I
Does
passed it
it?
on to someone else.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh well, so we won't be seeing that resurrected from you then.
Not as a
In the
zombie
future.
squad, no. I have written Space Kits, which is kind of a similar thing.
Yeah.
It uses a D20 system, roll under mechanic, and it's also about penal squadrons in space, criminals, military criminals in space. So Space Kits is kind of a new version of Zombie Squad, really,
Yeah, the new polished
with a new
version.
name.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
all the numbers sort of filed off a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned Delve there. Now, obviously, you're preparing, looking at a third edition, but we've got two previous editions to look at. So influences for that. Now, my take on it was I could actually see quite a bit of RuneQuest in there, and also the original D&D stuff. That's what it sort of came across to me anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
from your side, what were the influences for that one? Was it Tunnels and Trolls more?
No, I think it was. I do like percentile games.
Hmm.
So, and that's where I kind of grew up with, because from RuneQuest I went to Cthulhu and stuff. And I used to like old Warhammer fantasy games and stuff. So a lot of it's been D100. So I wanted to do a D100 game, but I also wanted to do one that was kind of recognizable to people who play D&D, which is why it has the leveling up
Yeah.
sections. It was like Chris is here.
Yeah.
Also, the original Delve didn't actually use a percentile system. The original first edition of Delve, which is no longer available, used to use you never rolled to hit, you only rolled to defend.
Yeah.
System. And that was basically, it was percentile, but you had to compare your defense with their attack number, and then you rolled under the number that was kind of came across. So it was like they had a defense of 10, you had an attack of 12, and you had to roll less than 55% to hit them or defend against them or whatever. So that was the original. And then in the second one, I actually refined it, improved it.
This is the
Made
one
it,
I've played. Yeah.
yeah, the one that's available now is the second edition.
Yeah.
And that was kind of influenced by, like I said, RuneQuest, D&D, and also a little bit of Warhammer was
I was
thrown
going to
there and there.
say Warhammer as well. I could very
Yeah.
clearly see from the skills.
But the idea came about from, I don't know where the idea came about from, really. I like the idea of them being shipwrecked. I think must have come from a little bit of idea of being from Lost or something like that, really, because I quite like the idea of being stuck on an island they could get off.
Well, it
It
works well, works very,
Yeah.
very well. And hello, Chris. We're just in the middle of recording here, so I'm glad you've actually sort of joined us.
Sorry,
Just to recap, we're talking to Jay and we're discussing basically his back catalogue of games to date. So
sorry
again,
about that. Kind of, I got lost in a dungeon. Sorry.
well, there you go. You must stop delving into these dungeons. Did you see what
know.
I did there?
I'm very sorry.
But I'm sure you'll get up to speed very soon. Anyway, right.
Carry on.
So we're stuck on an island and we have a little shanty town.
Wreckhaven, yeah.
Yeah, which again I found quite interesting. As
Yeah, I really like that. At first, it threw me, and I had to think about it, and I thought, like any adventure, the worst thing you can do is involve the players, because they have a habit of sort of going over there or sort of, oh, what's behind that outcrop? It's like, for God's sake, the adventure's here. Can we concentrate? So they can't go home. They don't know why they're there exactly. And it involves an awful lot of mystery. And it's like, well, we have to go over there to find out how to get out. So it's a brilliant hook, really. And the more I thought about it, I thought, yep, I'm going to steal that in various formats. That was cool.
Quick, copyright it. Anyway, you have done. That's all right.
I'll just file the edges off.
I think the thing that most people kind of comment about is the beginning, where where the characters kind of find themselves on the beach. They wake up on the beach after being shipwrecked, and the first thing they do is to check their pockets to see what they've got, and they have to roll on a table to see what items they've got in their pockets, because that's all they have.
Yes.
Then after that, they search the beach for the wreckage and find out what other things. And basically, whatever they find is what they've got. So you could end up with a dead fish in your pocket and a frying pan. And that'll be the thing you've got to.
Well, there you go. That's dinner sorted.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason it was because I don't think characters would end up with full plate mail and all their weapons shipwrecked on an island. It just seemed like that would be unlikely to happen.
Yeah, you'd certainly get that sinking feeling, wouldn't you, if you were in plate mail?
Yeah, exactly. And Wreckhaven was basically all the people who've been shipwrecked on the island over the years have built a little town from the lumber from the ships and whatever else was there at the time. And
that's another little thing I actually liked. I'd sort of quite a vision of what it would actually look like, as in the stern of a ship. Converted across, and all the other associated bits of all the other ships and vessels that have blown ashore, basically, and been wrecked. So it's quite a shantytown sort of feel to it, but also quite a sense of danger as well, because obviously the people there, when you land, are more aware of what's going on than you are. You're very much an outsider at the start.
Yeah, I don't know whether you've watched the TV series. Let me try and get this right. From. No, not ringing any bells. Just me then. Basically, small town. People turn up. There's a problem with the town.
Yeah.
And that's what I got from it. More
Twin
than
Peaks. There you go. That
more than essentially, it was not so much a lost as a what the hell sort of situation, and then you'd get the resentment as a GM play. I was thinking, well, how would I run it? I'd be like, the people already there, obviously they've only got a certain amount of resources, and then there's new guys coming on the horizon. I was like, oh Christ. I just like the setup, actually.
Yeah, same. And I think that actually sort of comes through the actual thought behind it. And I remember reading a review of it back in the day, remarking that it was absolutely jam-packed full, was the game, of little tidbits like that really came together and turned it into a powerhouse. And of course, the sales on it have done quite well. It's a gold one, that one, isn't it?
It's gold, yeah.
So that takes that takes a few sales, does that, so to speak. Selling puns intended completely, but yeah, that's a great way of actually doing it. And also, I know it's awful, and it's also what else is actually on that island. It's you can do whatever you want with it. You can go Lost World. You can go South America. You can go just about anywhere you actually sort of want. You can discover civilizations. You could get to the end and actually, I suppose, find a city on the other end, not realizing that the little sort of bits there. You could do whatever you fancied.
Yeah, I mean, we explore it in. I mean, the guide to Cragbound is a bit more comprehensive, and it sort of design. It sort of has a lot of locations in it to go to, which try to be as varied as possible. So the island is quite a varied place. I mean, even though it's an island, people go, "Oh, you're not going to get far." And you think to yourself, "Well, how far do you actually travel in a role playing game? Really?
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Call of Cthulhu, where you're globetrotting across the world. In a normal role playing game, a fantasy game, you don't really travel very far. No. I mean, if you look at, say, things like Forbidden Lands or Dragonbane, which is a new thing, it's basically a map of a place.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's a map of a valley, right? And you're based, and look, Symbaroum is a forest, basically, right? So an island is, and it's a large island, so it's not so odd, really, and it's not that small. It's quite a big island.
Yeah. And there's a lot to do there. That's the
But,
thing. Hell of a lot.
but as well, you've got like, you can stretch your imaginations and use, magic. The stuff underneath. It's just really cool because like you can. It's like what's it? That old 70s show based on an island. All kinds of mad crazy. Is it? I want to say Fantasy Island. That kind of thing. All crazy weird things happened.
Yes.
And it was just on an island. It was just like, how big is this island? We don't know. But magic, if you bring magic into it, you can go as far down as you want. Like they do in, Kong versus Godzilla and all that business. You know, you can even have like something in the skies above it, I guess.
It's whichever way you can take it.
There's quite a few adventures released for it as well. So I think I released about 6 sort of quite large adventures for it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scope for it. It has become a very popular game. So.
More than a lot of options and adventures for it. And that's the great thing, actually. One of the great things, actually, with it.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to talk about the new edition of Delve on a separate show, but what direction? Can you give any hints and tips? What direction are you thinking of going with Delve? Are you going to be expanding it, slimming it down? Including a load of new stuff. What plan have you actually got? Are you going to stick with the same core rules system, or is that going to change?
Okay, so basically, what's changing in Delve Third Edition is the rule books double the size.
Wow.
So that's the first thing, right. But that also encompasses about the island as well. So it's not going to be a separate book now.
Right.
So that includes that. It's the rules are still percentile. They're still working at 100%. They don't use the Warhammer style +5, +10, +25 anymore. The reason being was that was quite cumbersome and a little bit. I felt kind of limited a little bit. So I've got rid of that. I've got rid of the leveling system. There's no leveling system in now. You don't level up anymore.
Okay.
Instead, you improve your skills in a kind of similar way to Cthulhu, where if you roll a critical or a fumble, you tick the box, and at the end of a session, if you roll over it, you gain a D4 in that skill. You can also get training done, so you can go to someone, they can train you. So I've gone away from the leveling system bit, mainly because I'm not a big fan of leveling systems. I don't think a lot of people are these days. I think it's quite an old idea.
I think it's gone by the wayside in most games now, hasn't it?
Yeah. I've kind of. Go on.
No, sorry. You're literally preaching to the choir here. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I mean, I've done. There's a few little changes to it. I've tried to kind of keep it not simple. Because it isn't. I mean, less complicated. Not so much less complicated. I want to make it more intuitive. So you've got for your skills and stuff, you've got your percentage system. So you roll under your percentage. But there's also things like natural skills that work off the attributes and an attribute modifier. So instead of actually having to roll for a skill, because it's a natural thing like lifting a rock or pushing open a door or something like that, there's no skill for that really. It's just strength. So what you do now is you basically roll your 2d10, you add them both together, you add your strength modifier, and if you get over a certain number, you open the door. So I kind of wanted to keep them separate. So in reality now, characters who don't have stealth, they can still tiptoe and move quietly by using dex, right? I mean, just because you haven't got stealth doesn't mean you can't tiptoe, right? You can still move quietly. You just can't move as quietly, and you don't know what, all the little nuances that a thief will know, not to step on a certain step or how to stop the floorboards creaking and that sort of thing, which is what thieves train in. You'll still be able to move, quietly without having to have a stealth skill. So, yeah, everybody can tiptoe and move around quietly. I mean, none of us are trained thieves. Do you know what I mean? We're just standard people. So I always thought it was a bit weird that you couldn't move quietly unless you had a stealth skill in some games, and it was like,
yeah. Again, it does sound like you're moving from sort of very sort of like stagnant, sort of old-fashioned sort of rules sort of development to something that a little bit sort of I hate to say modern, but like it's more like intuitive, more workable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want everybody to have an equal opportunity of doing things without having to, but I didn't want everybody to be equal to a thief, right? I mean, a thief's always going to be better at certain things than normal people. And I think this is one of the things I didn't like about D&D was how everybody could learn how to pick locks and everybody could, I mean, if you took the criminal background, you ended up with, or the urchin background, you ended up with a thief's kit. Yeah. And then you could become a mage. And so, and it was just silly because when would a mage have a time to learn how to pick locks? Do you know what I mean? Learning to be a mage is hard enough. So I kind of want to take away that element of it. So I think every profession has its abilities, and they're not, taken away by another profession.
Yeah.
With a number in it or whatever, right? So that's just changed a little bit. It's not any more complicated. It's just as simple. It's just a different way of doing things. There's now stamina points, and stamina points can be used to push yourself that little bit harder, or it can be used in initiative. So if you roll your initiative and your initiative is like a 5 or whatever, and everybody else is going on an 8, you can actually use your stamina points to boost yourself.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So you're moving yourself forward. So you can actually use your stamina points to get yourself through initiative. You're not just stuck with whatever you roll. You can actually, exert yourself basically. So there's a few different changes in it and stuff. The whole new artwork. Your artwork in the original Delve and Delve Second Edition was all kind of stock art, royalty stock art, because I didn't have the money to buy art when I wrote it. But this is all brand new art, brand new maps, brand new layout.
Like myself, some maps. I'll be, looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah. So yeah, they're all pretty. Everything is pretty much redone. But anybody who's played the second edition Delve will easily pop into.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, we've got Delve. We've also got the Black Iron, which is a bit more dark.
It is a bit more dark. Yeah.
The elves have kind of pulled out, and it's what you're left with.
Yeah,
where did that one come from?
Okay, right. So the Black Iron is something I love. Grimdark fantasy, right? I read a lot of grimdark fantasy books. I know a lot of grimdark fantasy writers, so it was something that I've always wanted to kind of do, but I wanted to kind of do something that was different, because an awful lot of fantasy games these days are kind of the same.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something that was actually truly grimdark. I mean, things like Warhammer Fantasy, even though it's a great game, when it claims it to be grimdark, it really is just medieval, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just how it was in them days. There's nothing really grimdark. I mean, yeah, you got chaos and you got demons and stuff, but it's kind of grimdark with a
massive sense of humor.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not,
yeah.
So I kind of wanted to write something that was more grimdark, and actually was grimdark. So the Black Iron came about, really.
And the system for that? Now that again was quite a simple, well, not simplistic that sort of, but was a nice simple system to actually sort of use.
Yeah, I wanted the system to not take over the setting and the game itself. I wanted it to just be in the background and not be too overly complicated, because I think sometimes overly complicated systems can take away from the immersion.
Definitely.
Yeah, and which is why I'm not a big fan of of games that use tokens and cards and all that sort of stuff, because it takes away from the whole immersion a little bit. But with the Black Iron, it was a very simple D6 system, which worked very well. But yeah, I mean, the setting for Black Iron, the artwork, really kind
yeah,
of.
the artwork is very distinctive. I think that's
definitely.
the
I remember it. I remember it coming out. I remember you talking about it on Facebook, seeing images, the initial idea, talking to you about it. It was completely different. I loved how basically the elves are just complete bastards.
Yeah, yeah,
Proper like just screw everyone else, you know. And that the world has been literally destroyed, and those that are left have got to like scrape together the meager sort of possessions they've got and carry on, because role playing is a form of escape, escapism. And if I'm being honest with you, Black Iron is a place I do not want to spend any time.
Well, this kind of brings us on actually to the ruin, really, doesn't it?
In reality,
yeah.
I'm noticing a bit of a strand here. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, Black Iron is kind of my fantasy post-apocalyptic thing, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
And with the elves, we see how I've always seen elves is like, I don't like that whole idea that elves are happy-go-lucky, dancing, skipping kind of things with, beautiful. I always think you're going to live long. If you live that long, you're going to become quite jaded. You're going to get quite.
Oh God,
You're going to see other races as kind of petty and a bit pointless because they don't live so long.
Well, more the Nordic sort of elves,
yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to make the elves a bit more, gits, basically.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I get the impression that, an awful lot of the role-playing games set in Middle-earth don't do the world any justice, because unfortunately Tolkien's no longer with us. You can't turn around and go, yes, that's right, that's wrong. The elves in that aren't happy-go-lucky, loving, caring individuals.
a bit doomy, aren't
Well, unless you read The Hobbit, in which case, there's singing and dancing.
Yeah,
but
that's through the.
That's through a Hobbit's
That's through a Hobbit.
Yeah, the actual reality when you start looking at it, they're quite militaristic, and quite
they're based
xenophobic.
They're based on Norse ideology.
Yeah. See, I mean, with the elves for Black Iron, I kind of wanted to see what would they look, how would they see humanity? What would they, And I thought, well, look at how we treat lesser animals to ourselves, right? Or and we experiment on them a lot of the time, right? We do horrible things to animals and stuff because we don't recognize them as being either with a soul or whatever, right? We don't see them as equals, in effect. And I thought, well, the elves aren't going to see humans as equal. They're not going to, because they live like however many thousands of years. I mean, how could they possibly see a human as an equal who's going to live 80, 70 years, maybe 60 years? That's nothing. It's a blink, So in Black Iron, the elves are pretty cruel. They experiment on humans. But one of the reasons half elves even exist is because of these experiments. One of the other races, the Chimera, actually also are experiments by elves. They exist because of the melding of animals and humans.
That's cool.
To see that work. There's an whole island on Black Island, which was just basically a death camp. It's almost like just a camp where they experimented and treated humans, and then when they left it, they escaped. A lot of these animals are now these creatures are now exist within the actual game as threats, right? So and at the end of the day, when they eventually got vanquished, when they eventually got threatened by the humans, and the humans kind of beat them, they did the one thing they could do is that we can't have it, you can't have it, so they try to destroy it. So they're kind of they're very horrible race, and the fact is, the actual story starts off, the actual whole history starts off with the elves destroying all the dwarves. They kill them off. Because they enslave them and they kill them off, or do they kill them off? Who knows? I mean, there could still be some dwarfs out there, but the elves destroyed them, and then after they destroyed all the dwarfs, they went onto the surface and took over the humans, and it's basically the aftermath of all of that, where these bloodlords have turned up from the after. You don't know where they've turned up from, but there's these bloodlords, and then you've got these remnant who are like these kind of alien tentacled creatures that are kind of governing the humans and whispering to the humans about what they need to do and how they need to beat the bloodlords. And there's a whole thing going on with that. And that kind of idea came from Babylon 5. So if you know your Babylon 5 and you recognize the bloodlords and the Remnant as kind of a shadows and the Vorlons.
Oh yeah.
In a kind of a way. If you know your Babylon 5, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's but yeah, there's going to be So anyway, the Black Iron is actually another book I'm actually going to be redoing, and that will be out by the end of the year.
Yeah.
New artwork, new maps, whole new rebuilt. The system's going to stay the same. Mechanics are going to stay the same because mechanics work, but it's going to be brand new artwork, brand new maps. Books are going to be a little bit bigger again. And then there's going to be a second Black Iron book coming out next year. And that's a different location.
Again, interesting. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that at some stage. And obviously, as I mentioned the room, but we'll move on to Ghost Stops. Though we'll lighten the mood somewhat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this is one of my sort of personal favourites is Ghost Stops. I find it very difficult to find a good modern combat role-playing game. I'll be quite blunt with you on that. But this ticks the boxes. It's the only one that's really come close for me is the Twilight 2000 older edition, the 2.2, which I do really enjoy. It had, let's face it, Twilight 2000 did have a stack of issues actually sort of with it. Maybe the new Twilight 2000 will catch up at some stage. I think it's lagging a little bit at this moment in time. There doesn't seem to be too much coming out of it, and I think it's too limited in scope at this stage. But Ghost Stops, I've got the 5th edition version.
Okay, right.
So that's where I am with that, and I think it's very well written. It's so many different elements actually sort of in there. I can see top secret. I can see video games influence. There's so much, and you can get quite cinematic with it as well. So tell us a bit of Ghost Stops. What was the thought behind that, and why did that come about?
Right, so Ghost Stops. that was kind of a weird one, really, because it wasn't something I'd planned. I was playing Ghost Recon Wildlands on the Xbox, right. And I was playing it, and I've been playing it for a while, and I was thinking this would actually make quite a good role-playing game because it's like 4 characters, right? You've got your party,
yep,
and they're basically going out and doing missions, which is pretty much a role-playing game. They all got their own personalities. Everybody's got their own job.
Yeah.
And why has nobody done this before, right? Why has nobody ever made a role-playing game of this? Because it's a perfect role-playing game. It's not like, I mean, you see a lot of these, a lot of these games that have been made from computer games, for example, Assassin's Creed, or and you think, well, Assassin's Creed is a one person game, right? It's one character on the screen running around doing the stuff. And I find that would be very difficult to turn into a role-playing. It's like Tomb Raider, right? Yeah. It'd be difficult to turn it into a role-playing game because it's not really about a group. It's about one person.
One person doing basically.
Yeah. And in a role-playing game, you're going to have like 4 assassins or 4 Tomb Raiders, and that seems a little bit forced,
It's like having 4 judges from Judge Dredd. What the hell do you do with 4 judges? One of them, it's got to be something pretty bad going down.
Exactly, and I was thinking when I was playing it, I was thinking, there's 4 teams. There's a 4 team here. There's 4 of us, and the other 3 are AI, but it didn't have to be. I could get my friends to join in this game, and we'd all play a separate person, right? And I thought this is a perfect. It's everything about a role playing game in this game, right? So kind of give it some thought, and I remember speaking to my wife about it and saying, this is interesting idea. I've never, nobody's ever done this before. And then after I decided that it might be a good idea to do one, I then had to think about, well, how am I going to do it? And it kind of sprang up from there. It was finding the system was the hardest part. So I wanted a system that was quick. I didn't want a system that was slow, because you're going to have a firefight. I didn't want to go through the same problems that a lot of games have with firefights.
Yeah.
Which annoy me about fight. I mean, it's things like, I love Warhammer stuff, right? I love the idea of playing an Inquisitor, but I didn't like the rules because you could dodge bullets, and it just right, and it seemed janky and a bit slow, and so I wanted something that was quick. So the idea was after looking through so many different systems, I came up with using fudge dice, not in the same way that Fate does, or even fudge does really, but in my own way. And the Fate dice seem to work pretty well. So after running it a bit and play testing it in check, it actually worked really well, and it came out as quite fast and cinematic. And I had to do a lot of research into special forces groups at the time, and I bought a hell of a lot of books on special forces units and special forces missions throughout the world, all these sort of non-fiction war books, and studied it basically, and that's how Ghost Ops came about, really.
Well, as a bit of a background, it works very well if you take Craig Thomas's book Operation Snow Falcon, Guns of Navarone, with a bit of a tweak. It works very well with that, and basically a lot of the older cinematic war stories where it's about a small collection of soldiers going out and doing whatever, it does seem to work very, very well.
So,
Tom Clancy as well, it works well as.
Oh, yeah, Rainbow Six was a big influence.
I was actually thinking Red Storm Rising, actually.
All
with
right.
the various, Iceland campaign specifically on that.
I've never really, I know this sounds terrible, especially talking to you who've written it. I've never felt the urge to run a game like that, but I've got a few of the. It's not something I'm a big fan of as a general player. Got our own likes and dislikes. But thinking about it, I really do like films like Where Eagles Dare.
Yeah.
So you could run that. There's a mission to sort of, blow up a Nazi base. So, actually, I probably would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ghost Ops is set kind of modern day, so it's the old concept behind Ghost Ops is that after the Paris terrorist attacks with the newspaper and stuff, when all the leaders kind of gathered in Paris and did this whole peace thing, that was kind of a front for actual talks about getting an international group together that was kind of neutral in the sense where it didn't have just one country, it was a group of countries, a bit like Rainbow Six, right?
Yeah.
Where they would go out and they would hunt down terrorists and stop the bad guys before they did what they did. And that was kind of the idea behind it. So in the actual book, you've got various different countries you can be part of. You can choose a special forces from your own country or from other countries. And they all work together basically as these complete unit. And it allowed people to play characters from their own country, which is unusual. A lot of role-playing games are based, if not fantasy, the modern day, they're kind of based in America, really. It's only Free League that's kind of started doing things in Sweden as well as America, or Sweden as well as England, or whatever. And I think by having characters or players be able to choose a character from their own country special forces was kind of a draw for a lot of people, because they didn't get the opportunity very often. And so the idea was that you could basically read a newspaper, a GM could pick up a newspaper and go, right, there's a problem in South Africa, or there's a problem in Iraq, or there's a problem in wherever, China, let's send the Ghost Ops unit in to solve it, right? And so that was kind of a mission. So the mission would be, this person's been taken hostage, or this person's been running guns, or this gang is selling drugs, or whatever. You need to take out the drug lab. And so that was kind of the idea behind it. in a kind of Ghost Recon way. But I mean, there is plans to do a kind of a World War II one where you play SAS, and you basically go in and you take out Nazi camps and Nazi bases, and you take out, assassinate Nazi leaders. I did a venture based in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, where you're playing CIA, and you're having to rescue POWs from a Vietnamese camp, which turns out to be a bit of a twist at the end. So it's worth checking out. I'm also going to do I'm going to be doing a far future one as well, where you're basically playing military in a future kind of war situation.
Starship Troopers. That's but it works. It does work very well if you want an Expendables type of game.
Exactly.
Well.
Yeah. So Expendables. Yeah.
Again, the cinematic side, but certainly on the novels side, it can fit in with most of like I said, the Craig Thomas style one. Certainly Cold War. And it's becoming quite cold on that front again now, let's face it. So it's quite up there and current, I'd say.
Yeah.
But definitely. So and obviously you did a 5th edition version of it as well as the.
That's been really the actual 5th. I didn't expect the 5th edition version to be very popular actually, but it's been massively. That's another gold bestseller.
I'm not surprised. I'm really not.
And it's done really well because it is different. It's different, and
that's uses the point. Yeah, it's. I did. You're probably aware of One Dice, Cape Breton and Walton, and there was the World War II one, and I did a set of commando scenarios for it, and they've gone down exceedingly well, and it was just a series of 4 interlinked adventures. But again, something like that would work so well with Ghost Ops. You mentioned there World War II. I said it'd be perfect for that. You could go and join David Sterling on the front line and in North Africa and go and blow some Nazi bases up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's that definitely sort of works for me. I'll be the Irish chap. Right. Anyway, enough of that. We've lightened the mood quite a bit with Ghost Ops. So I think we should actually sort of return to, shall we say, very quickly, we're running out of time, but more darker. I mentioned the Ruin, which is your post-apocalyptic one. Now, again, I've a little bit of knowledge on that one, and that again was sort of quite interesting. So, very quickly, bit of background on that one. Where did the ideas? I think I know anyway. Where did the ideas for that one come from?
Well, I'm a huge fan of post-apocalyptic movies and books and games. And I was thinking about writing one anyway, but I didn't want to do one that was been done 1,000 times before. So there's loads of post-apocalyptic games out there with zombies. Loads of them, and Fallout does the whole mutant thing, and I kind of didn't want to do all of that. So I wanted to make one that was kind of more like the films I like watching. So I wanted to make it more like kind of a Book of Eli, Mad Max, The Road, they're really kind of realistic post-apocalyptic sort of games, films. And the same with the books as well. There's an awful lot of really good post-apocalyptic books that aren't really zombies and so forth and so on. So I kind of got influenced by that. So the Ruin is kind of very much a survival apocalyptic. So you're kind of, the apocalypse has happened. You've kind of got to survive. The biggest bad guys are other humans. And it is just surviving, really. So it's a little bit different to your average post-apocalyptic game. I don't know. I mean, it is dark because of the content, but there's the element of hope.
Yeah, the art is great, I think, with it as well, and really sort of captures the spirit of it.
Yeah, I want to kind of give this desolate kind of look.
It reminds me of a kind of Last Man on Earth sort of thing, or the James Herbert novel set in London after World War II, after the Germans had started using apocalyptic weapons, and of course brought an end to just about everything. And that's kind of the feel actually of it, which I do quite enjoy. So a different
Yeah.
take on it again. It has succeeded on that.
And that's another one that actually did really well as 5th edition as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I can well believe that. Yeah,
that's another one with gold bestseller. And
Purely just asking for a friend. What system does it use apart from this 5th edition thing I keep hearing about?
It uses percentile dice. So it's a D100 system. It's actually it's another game that I'm kind of rebuilding.
What's your website again? I shall just go on. What's that thing I should be buying, to be quite honest? I'm desperate, like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently rebuilding it, and I'm using the new Delve system for it. So that'll be using the same system as Delve. So I'll be a percentile system.
Good.
And I'm actually thinking also of making it the same system, making 2 versions. One of the systems is going to be the same as Ghost Ops. So in theory, you could actually combine the 2. So you could have special forces in a post-apocalyptic setting. So you come out of a military bunker, and you've got to go out there and do things for find whatever. But however you want to do it, it's going to be compatible in effect.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to combine the 2, you could. But yeah, but basically the D100 ones are going to be updated with there's new artwork again. There's going to be 2 settings in the new one, which are going to be New York and London. London is pretty much underwater. A lot of it's flooded, and so you're traveling by barge through subway stations and stuff, and you're basically there's shanties on the London Bridge, and it's going to be
that's cool.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of gangs and stuff. And in New York, you've got pretty much Ellis Island is now a settlement. So around the Statue of Liberty is a settlement. Central Park is a market, a vast market that you can go into. It's kind of a bit like Beyond Thunderdome sort of thing.
Yeah.
I like that. That works.
And I think what we need to sort of remember is that 5th edition D&D, it is the biggest selling role-playing set of core rules out there, and there's a lot of people that are very comfortable with 5th edition, whether you're a fan or not. Now, I like it because it's so adaptable. That's you can do a lot with it, and this is the reason why I think these are actually so successful, because they're very, very different from anything that you would actually find from Wizards of the Coast, and also quite a lot of other indies as well. And this makes the real difference, because a lot of gamers will have played Call of Duty and other similar sorts of online shooters, and Ghost Ops ticks that box. The post-apocalyptic ones, again, it's got quite a big fan base, but it's not something that you tend to find in your standard D&D worlds, or even as part of Forgotten Realms or anything like that. So again, it ticks the boxes, and this is why I think it's so successful. So as much as the 5th edition may be knocked by some people, there are a lot of people who do enjoy using it out there. People can stay within the comfort zone, and that is the big plus. And why not cater to those people? Because they're customers.
True. It's not for everyone, but it is for a lot of people. I mean, how many times is somebody that likes D&D expected to buy the same setting and again and again? Even
Chris, hundreds of times. Obviously,
obviously, you've got to buy Forgotten Realms a billion times, or you're not a role player. Which means I'm not a role player.
You're not a role player. What are you even doing here?
I'll go. I can go.
I mean, with 5th edition, with Ghost Ops and Ruin, I do change it slightly. There's not the same.
No, it is. Yeah.
There's more choices, I think, with what I do, because you can choose your features. You don't have to take the one that's given to you. And it changes and it only goes up to 10th level as well, so you can't go above 10th level. After 10th level, I think D&D kind of breaks itself anyway, but so it is a little bit more different. I'd like to do a couple of honorable mentions, if that's all right.
Yeah,
because I think these are kind of underloved, but they're great games. The first one being League of Seekers,
Okay.
which is also used as 5th edition rules actually, but it's kind of set in a kind of Georgian. It's a Georgian horror game. If you ever seen, have you ever played Bloodborne, right? Or have you ever seen Brotherhood of the Wolf, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of that sort of game. You're playing seekers or hunters, right? Who basically hunt monsters during certain high moons. So you've got like the blood moon that comes out. So you've got the artwork. So you've got the seekers there. If you can see that,
Yeah.
that's your kind of seeker type. And it's also kind of got that Lovecraftian edge to it as well. So you've got a kind of a Lovecraft-esque thing going on. So there's a lot of bits about the Cthulhu mythos and all of that, and it's a great game, and it uses 5th edition, like I said. I'm surprised it hasn't got better than it was. Didn't sell as well, and maybe it's for subject matter or something, but it is a good game, and it would just be nice if it had a bit more love to some of the artwork inside it as well.
Quite dark. Yep.
Yeah, it is a dark horror game for 5th edition.
Yeah,
a bit of Lovecraftianness in thrown in. And the other thing I'd like to mention, really, before we go any further, is Fantasy Kits.
We were talking about this earlier, of course. So yeah.
Yeah, this is Space Kits, but this is Fantasy Kits, and it's kind of a complete game and role setting in one book. And again, it's you play as mercenaries. You start off at the bottom of a hole after being thrown in it for crimes against the ruling classes of the time. You get thrown into a pit, and you basically have to start the game with nothing again, and leave a dungeon. So basically, it's a reverse dungeon. So you start at the bottom of the dungeon, trying to work your way up, and you end up you wake up in a pile of bodies of the previous people who've been thrown in the pit who basically broke your fall. But it's a roll under system, D20. It's a great game. I mean, it has sold well, but it could do better. And finally,
yeah.
It reminds me of Hull, that if you ever came across Hull. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's Stranded, which is
this is what I was going to sort of talk about as well. So
yeah, that's the science fiction version of Dell. So basically, you're stranded on a planet, and it's blockaded by the ruling empire, if you like. So you can't get off the planet. But the planet's been used for experimenting and stuff on humans and all sorts of things. So there's lots of mental humans running around and bandits and weird animals and all sorts of things. So you basically, that's Stranded. Use the same system as Dell. And then finally, which was my
sorry, just go back to Stranded. So that's a little bit like Elysium, but with aliens.
It's kind of like I kind of got the influence from a little bit of Borderlands. If you ever played the Borderlands, where you're kind of stuck on a planet, and there's basically just loads of raving mad criminals and experimented on creatures and all sorts of things. And you can play a rabbit.
Well, why not? Why not?
And then this is another gold bestseller, and this has sold really well. But this is another one I did, which was an SRD hack. So basically, it took what I didn't like about D&D and changed it. So this is kind of my version of a D&D rules, and this is Big Fucking Axe. And it's basically just getting D&D and changing stuff, getting rid of things like yes, it's just a SRD hack, and it sold really, really well. Actually, I think it went gold in 2 days. They said. So
yeah, not surprised.
Yeah, it's my honourable mentions, really.
More than honourable mentions. Well, we're going to come back and discuss others anyway. You've done so much; it'd be difficult to fit into a single chat anyway. We've got obviously behind me. I've got Delve 3rd edition sort of showing. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that in a future chat, and you'll be joining us, of course, hopefully for regular chats anyway. So feel free during those chats to give us updates of where you're at with things. That's part of what we actually sort of do. I'm going to ask, what are your top 3 role-playing games that are not your own? So there you go. Don't need to be in any specific order, but really putting you on the spot here. You're stranded basically. You've been shipwrecked on a beach, and you dip into your pockets and you pull out 3 games. Unfortunately, they're your 3 favourite games. Unfortunately, you've got no dice, but never mind. We'll worry about that later. But you managed to get the
yeah.
3 favourite role-playing games, and you're looking now wistfully behind you, going, "Oh my God, which ones are they going to be?"
Don't worry about the dice because there is a town just ahead of you.
Yeah.
If I had to choose 3, I would say Call of Cthulhu.
Yep.
That has to be my number 1 anyway. I love Call of Cthulhu. And that would encompass Delta Green as well, because I also love Delta Green, but it's
Yeah.
a similar system, the same thing.
Yeah, basically, they're completely interchangeable.
Yeah. If I had to pick a second one, I'd probably say
This is really causing you some issues.
Try this.
Dungeon Crawl Classics, I would say, was definitely in there.
Interesting,
like
interesting
Yeah.
choice. It's very, very sort of I don't know. Yeah, lots of charts, lots of rolls, lots of rules. Very substantial book and bit of a classic.
I mean, I've run it a lot, so and I enjoy running it, and I think that's why I like it. It's because I enjoy running it. And my third one,
He'd no idea I was going to throw this at him, Chris.
You got well awares. I would have to say something like, I do like Warhammer Fantasy, but I like elements of the first edition. I like elements of the second edition. I'm not a big fan of the fourth edition, for the very reason of the whole kind of
It's all right. You're amongst friends. You can say what you like.
Success, the whole success rank thing, where if somebody rolls 60 and you roll a 40, they're you're 2, whatever, and then it just becomes more complicated. It's an extra step that I don't really like.
If we all liked the same thing, it would be a very boring world.
Yeah, I like first edition because when you blocked with your shield, it would take some of the damage. It wouldn't take all of the damage off. So in first edition Warhammer, when you hit somebody and they block through your shield, you'll still take damage.
Yeah,
I like that. I think when it's went to strike ranks or whatever they call it, success levels and things, it kind of went off on one for me. I didn't enjoy it any longer. I've always liked RuneQuest's way of doing it in second edition, where you basically have a defense number and you minus it off their attack roll. I've always preferred that.
Yeah.
Seems easy for me. And I've kind of went that way with Delve a little bit. So, you've got a defense number, you take that off your attack, and if you've got a shield, it adds to a defense number and so forth and so on. It just makes it harder to hit.
So
rather than have all this flangling about and stuff.
So stop stalling and give us number 3.
That's it.
I would say probably Warhammer Fantasy, I think.
Yeah, you go. That's it. So there we go. We've got the top 3. Or Traveller.
Yeah, they're both on the same level.
Now, which version of Traveller?
Well,
I have both. Well, I have the black box. I have a small black box, which I've got. But I do prefer the Mongoose one, but only because it's more modern and it's easier to read and it's not so dense.
It is.
There's a lot of proper roller games now.
Yeah, it's the little black box has its good points, and I think it's a solid base to run sci-fi games from. And Mongoose, I think, actually has the edge, but nothing can beat the feel of the old little Mayday black box set for me.
Yeah, the thing with old games were, and this is a problem, I didn't notice them in the day, and you probably were the same back in the 80s and stuff. We didn't notice this sort of thing, but looking back at them now, they seem more like textbooks.
Yeah, they were. Mythos Dangerous Journeys comes to mind, which is probably one of the most complex games I've ever come across. It really heck of points and goodness knows what. And as much as I love Gary Gygax's works and what he's actually done, when you take a look at the thickness of the books, the volumes of it, and there's very little art in there, it's invariably solid block text, column after column after column after column.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and there's a lot of maths in there, a heck of a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
things have changed, and I think for the better. That's my take on modern games.
Yeah. Totally.
It's there's a lot to be said for the old classics. I always found, this is from personal side, that the Fantasy Games Unlimited ones and SPI ones quite difficult in places. I'm thinking of Universe and Space Opera. I always preferred the more simplistic Star Frontiers and Traveller. Basically, that was my take on it. So there we
Yeah.
go. Right. Well, I'll wrap things up here. It's we've been talking for quite a bit of time. I'm glad you could join us anyway, Chris. So please,
Being late.
please like, subscribe, and comment. And Jay will be joining us as a semi-regular going forward anyway to discuss what's going on in the gaming world. And we'll catch up with him another time to talk about the new Delve and the other projects. So it's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye as well from them. See you soon. Thank you very much.